2023 Emerging Trends webinar coming up on Thursday, January 26th. And last week in Las Vegas, the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, took place in Las Vegas. And this annual event explores the newest consumer goods, featuring everything from slim and high definition TVs like TCL's 8K TV that's only 4 millimeters thick, and VR headsets, robotics, and of course, high-tech massage chairs. And this year, CES expanded by 70%, according to articles that covered the event, including the new West Hall of the Las Vegas Convention Center. Johannes flew in for this iconic event. What did you think of the show, Johannes?
Well, I know the CES, of course, Tiffany, but this was my first time at the CES. And yes, the consumer electronics portion of the show was, as was to be expected, mind-blowing with fantastic displays and booths. But I felt right at home in the technology portion of the show because all the technology trends that we've been covering in the past, now almost 3 years, took up a large portion of CES 2023.
Thanks, Johannes. And one of the most talked about things at the show was the color-changing car by BMW. And according to CNBC, BMW's first color-changing concept car is here. And the tech could be used for everything from e-readers to smartwatches. But that's not the only transportation tech highlighted at CES 2023. Tesla rides in the longer Vegas Loop made for a colorful transportation to the event venue. And the length of the tunnel, with just 12 foot in diameter, was extended to 4.7 kilometers, which is 3.5 miles for this year's show, with the number of stops increasing from 3 to 5. And that was stopping stations across the exhibition. And hot on the heels of Tesla, many companies raced to challenge Tesla's EVs of the future, including one company with a mode of transportation dubbed Tesla of the Seas. On Thursday, Swedish company Candela unveiled its 8.5-meter electric-powered hydrofoil speedboat that can cruise over 2 hours at 20 knots or about 37 kilometers per hour. And California's startup Naviair tried to outdo its Scandinavian rival by bringing along an electric hydrofoil to CES, though Candela is further on in getting its production to customers. Even though the recreational motorboat conglomerate Brunswick Corporation tried to make a splash in Nevada by showing off its latest electric outboard motor, an emerging segment of its mostly gas-powered fleet. And CES even featured flying cars. The US startup Aska has landed a prototype at CES. And the Aska A5 is a flying car that is an electric VTOL with a significant range while capable of driving on the ground. The company has opened pre-orders and is confident to launch in 2026. Aska claims the A5 has a range of 250 miles or 400 kilometers once airborne, which seems impressive since the VTOL also the size of an SUV, according to the company. And the trick is in a range extender running on gasoline. And there were many other concept cars and EVs at the show. But Johannes, were you surprised by the number of smart mobility solutions featured at CES 2023?
Well, actually, I was, Tiffany. It felt like an extension of the Las Vegas Motor Show. And although I didn't see a lot of autonomous cars, there were a lot of in-car entertainment solutions and, of course, a lot of connected vehicle solutions for almost market-ready solutions to concepts. And then, of course, we had the major announcements. And I would like to highlight just one, because Sony and Honda revealed the Afeela, which is their joint EV brand at the CES. So this is a new EV level 3 automated driving capabilities under limited conditions. So external media are integrated along the front of the car, which allows it to interact with other road users and share information. Then on top of that, Afeela will also feature best-in-class entertainment for customers. So this car will come with the following engines, all integrated: Epic's Games, Unreal Engine, and a 3D computer graphics game engine to help visualize entertainment in the car and, of course, communication and safety. I feel like the entertainment of the car is going to be the decisive factor which car you choose, less than not so much the car itself. But anyway, last but not least, I would like to mention that the Bugatti electric scooter was back this year. This is the scooter for man and woman on the go. And yes, this is a scooter that you don't mind being seen with.
I know you were looking at possibly getting one of those, Johannes. You have to keep an eye on when those come to market.
I will.
And the last smart mobility concept that I want to mention is from Hyundai, as HD Hyundai vowed to lead ocean transformation for a sustainable future. The concept of ocean transformation refers to the company's new approach to the ocean, the repository of the Earth's resources and the center of the global network, said HD Hyundai. HD Hyundai, which recently renamed itself from Hyundai Heavy Industries, said it will utilize world leading shipbuilding technology and establish a safe transport value chain to turn the ocean into a place of sustainable, eco friendly energy. And HD Hyundai presented the four core pillars of its maritime transformation goals: ocean mobility, ocean wise, ocean life, and ocean energy. Ocean mobility will focus on the plan to lead the safest and most efficient maritime transport of hydrogen and ammonia fuel with future ships that are equipped with autonomous sailing technology and digital solutions. At the show, HD Hyundai displayed a small model of what aims to be the world's largest ammonia carrier, with a 90,000 cubic meter capacity and the world's first liquefied hydrogen carrier with a capacity of 40,000 cubic meters. OceanWise will look to achieve true optimization of the maritime supply chain with artificial intelligence and big data technology to combine the information of ships, ports, and weather across the world to provide a total platform solution called OceanWise. According to HJ Hyundai's calculation, OceanWise will be able to increase global shipping capacity by up to 10%, an equivalent of over 2 million shipping containers worldwide. Spokespeople at the show shared the vessel will be 5 football fields long and reduce carbon emissions by 50%. What are your thoughts on HD Hyundai, Johannes?
Well, it's a very ambitious program, Tiffany, but yes, the maritime supply chain is here to stay. And what the last 2.5 years have shown us is that because it's here to stay, we'll need to take a very good look at it. And what this Hyundai example clearly demonstrates is that the robot ships are coming. Now, talking about robots, I was surprised to see so many service robots, cleaning robots, delivery robots, even one assisting with cleanup in the West Hall. And let's not forget the pool cleaning robot. What do you think of all the robots, Tiffany?
Well, I will definitely take a pool cleaning robot for sure. And while there are plenty of robots, from four legged dog like robots to life size robots and even toy size robots, there certainly were plenty of robots to choose from at CES. And another trend that we saw a lot of was smart home technology, as Matter became a focus of many conference sessions. And of course, smart homes would not be possible without IoT. And the IoT pavilion was buzzing with a variety of solutions featured and mergers and acquisitions being a common thread. Personally, I really enjoyed the Blues Wireless booth that featured a number of connected solutions that were all powered by Blues. According to all of the solution providers, Blues works, which is great news. And their Blues Cafe coffee bar was amazing, where I even saw that they were printing their logos on the froth from the coffee. And it was great coffee, I have to add. What did you think of the IoT Pavilion, Johannes?
I like the IoT Pavilion, and there were great examples of IoT use cases also in the Blues booth. It was also the place to be if you're looking for IoT infrastructure or IoT cloud platforms, IoT connectivity platforms, or even IoT device platforms. So whatever platform you need to make your IoT project market ready, there were solutions in the IoT pavilion. But, and you mentioned it already, in all honesty, there was much more IoT outside of the pavilion. A large part of CES 2023 was about IoT.
Thanks, Johannes. And another trend we saw a lot of at the show was energy harvesting, where one solution even showed energy harvested from a loaf of bread and a glass of wine. It's still unclear whether the bread and wine are still safe to consume after the energy is harvested, but time will tell. What are your thoughts on energy harvesting, Johannes?
Um, well, let's not go into bread and wine, but it's an interesting concept, Tiffany. And yes, we can harvest energy from a wide variety of sources. As a designer, as an electronics designer, IoT designer, it does force you to think outside the box and not fully rely on the battery. But there are energy harvesting chipsets available. And if you're designing an IoT device that you know will end up in difficult to get locations, you have to consider adding energy harvesting to your device.
Thanks, Johannes. And experience was another key trend of CES 2023. Nikon featured the Unreal Ride by MRMC. Nikon aims to become a key technology solutions company in a global society where humans and machines co create seamlessly by 2030. And at CES 2023, Nikon showcased the future of society that Nikon envisions. And the Unreal Ride is a demonstration of the power of motion control and virtual production. The Unreal Ride took participants into an immersive virtual production experience, capturing a video of themselves moving through a virtual environment as if it were the real thing. And participants sat on a custom made futuristic motorcycle, prop against the backdrop of a giant LED screen. When captured through the lens, it appeared as if they were riding through the virtual environment. And the ride is captured by Mark Roberts Motion Control Limited, a subsidiary of Nikon's Bolt TMX high speed camera robot. This advanced technology demonstrates how filmmakers can shoot against any background they can imagine without being bound by time, season, or place. And this activation supports Nikon's vision for a society where people are connected in ways that transcend time and space with imaging production technologies. And another unique experience that I'd like to highlight is where M. Night Shyamalan teamed up with Canon to create the Knock at the Cabin immersive experience. And the director worked with the tech developer to put moviegoers inside his upcoming Universal thriller. The experiences were enabled by featured Canon technology, including free viewpoint video system, M Real mixed reality headset, Kokomo VR software, and remote collaboration tool Amlos. Using an array of Canon Cinema EOS based 4K cameras and lenses, the free viewpoint camera system captures volumetric camera data to create point cloud based 3D models that can be used to reproduce various viewpoints. And this was used to create a way for CES attendees to view an action scene from the Knock at the Cabin from four different character perspectives. Johannes, what did you think of these experiences at the show?
Well, first off, I liked Nikon's Unreal Ride, and it reminded me of the production set of The Mandalorian, which uses a huge video wall to display a live image behind the actors while the actors are sitting on a ride. But of course, technology has progressed a lot in the past few years because Nikon's Unreal Ride looked very, I would almost say, simple, meaning something that you could use in any setting. So that's great. So that means it's available for anybody who wants to make a movie. Second, we also had a chance to use Canon's MLOS camera system, which basically takes us out of our Zoom meetings into a remote classroom or office, and it gives the presenter and the audience much more freedom to capture, pass along, and store information for later use.
Thanks, Johannes. And the metaverse is another big trend featured at CES 2023. And we've discussed the metaverse quite a bit, but what about the omniverse? Mercedes Benz is assembling next gen plants using NVIDIA's Omniverse. German car maker Mercedes Benz said that it is using NVIDIA's Omniverse platform to design and plan manufacturing and assembly facilities. The use of NVIDIA AI and metaverse technologies enables the automaker to create feedback loops to reduce waste, decrease energy consumption, and continuously enhance quality, according to NVIDIA. Mercedes Benz has been working with NVIDIA to develop software defined vehicles for its upcoming fleets that will be built on NVIDIA Drive or in centralized compute, with intelligent driving capabilities tested and validated by NVIDIA and the NVIDIA Drive Sim platform, built on Omniverse, NVIDIA said in a blog post. And the automaker's latest announcement infuses AI and the metaverse technologies even further into the Mercedes Benz development process with smarter, more efficient manufacturing. Vehicle production is a colossal undertaking that requires thousands of parts and workers moving in harmony. Any supply chain or production issues can lead to costly delays, NVIDIA said. On top of that, when automakers roll out a new model, they must reconfigure the layout of production plants to account for the new vehicle design. The processes can take a significant portions of the factory offline, pausing manufacturing for existing vehicles, the firm added. And NVIDIA Omniverse is an open 3D platform enabling enterprises and institutions across all industries to build and operate digital twins for industrial and scientific use cases. It's based on Universal Seed Description USD, allowing enterprises and developers to construct custom 3D pipelines to break down data silos and interact with a single view of their aggregated simulations. How do you feel about the Omniverse, Johannes?
Well, we've talked about this in previous newscasts, Tiffany. The industrial metaverse is just around the corner, metaphorically speaking. And this is another great example of a use case for the industrial metaverse. We already know that AR and VR are transforming the automotive industry and are being used in manufacturing, for training, and for design and prototyping. The same for digital twins. There are several use cases of digital twins in automotive. So the step to the NVIDIA Omniverse platform is not that big. The the automotive Omniverse will be here before we know it. So it's a great example. But before we close, because we're almost done, something completely different, Tiffany. The CES is so large, no way we can cover everything. But uh, what's your feedback on the following products? The Ring flying camera, the Skynet speech privacy mask, and the L'Oreal Brow Magic.
Well, they definitely sound interesting. I don't think they had free samples available of any of those products, but I guess there's always next year. And that's about all the time we have for today. So be sure to register for our 2023 Emerging Trends webinar on January 26th, as well as our upcoming Green Things Summit in April. And we will continue to bring you our monthly news broadcast. And we encourage you to join us to hear the latest in IoT and tech news. And also, please contact us to learn more about our services such as marketing, PR, and production. Perhaps you want a webinar of your own, or you want to speak or sponsor one of our webinars. Please contact us for more information, and you can do so at iotmktg.com. And thank you all for watching, and thank you so much, Johannes, for joining me today.
Thank you, Tiffany.
And in the remaining time, let's take a look at one of the winners of our recent Industry Insights IoT Awards. Here's Robert Hamblett, winner of IoT Executive of the Year and IoT Rising Star of the Year, Teal Communications. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tiffany Nielsen of IoT Marketing, and with me is Robert Hamblett, CEO of Teal Communications. How are you today, Robert?
I'm doing great. Great to see you again, Tiffany.
Great to see you as well. And during our recent Industry Insights IoT Awards, you were the winner of several categories. And you were personally named IoT Executive of the Year. And Teal Communications was also named IoT Rising Star of the Year. Are you excited about winning these awards?
100%. Obviously, I'm most excited about the company award because it's all about the company. It's all about Teal. But as an individual, I'm very grateful as well for the recognition industry.
Great. And can you tell us more about Teal Communications?
Yeah, so Teal is an IoT connectivity platform. So we provide network access to enterprises that are trying to get their devices onto cellular networks. Teal does not itself operate the networks. We're more of an app store, so allowing customers to enroll their devices directly into the different carriers that exist. This is obviously enterprises building IoT devices. So functionally, they're able to use multiple networks at the same time, access redundancy and features like deploying in countries where you need to have a native SIM card really deliver the promise of eSIM.
Great. And what makes Teal unique?
Other than the actual like product specific uniqueness, I think what makes Teal unique is just the way that we're approaching the problem. So we are able to enable people to have their cake and eat it too. So you can get the native network performance while at the same time getting the multi-network flexibility that an MVNO would offer. So we're not an MVNO, we're not an MNO, we're something completely different.
Well, who doesn't love having their cake and eating it too? So that's fantastic. And Robert, how long has Teal been in business, and what have been some significant milestones that have helped you reach this level of success?
Well, we started in 2018. It took us about a year to develop the product, then about a year of interviewing customers, meeting new businesses, and kind of adapting it. Once we launched the system, we had some very early wins, very early successes in a lot of more traditional IoT industries like router manufacturers and telemetry devices. And then really saw that there were some new use cases coming out, drones, automotive, industrial, robotics, things like that. And that's where we really started to see revenue accelerate for Teal. And so we raised our last round back in April. So we got in kind of right before the tech market encountering some news, which is very timely of us. Um, Milestones that I'm most proud of are not necessarily the ones that Teal has; it's the ones that our customers have. I love when a customer starts to deploy a new use case and a new network with a new device. So we kind of celebrate when we have our partners, our customers, companies like Starship that go on to sign deals like the ones that they signed with Grubhub, or any of those kind of examples. So we love to see our customers succeed. Those are the milestones that matter to us.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Robert. And as IoT Executive of the Year, what are some qualities that you feel are essential for being successful as an IoT executive?
I always go back to being passionate. It's a developing space, and you got to be agile. So you got to be able to learn. And if you're passionate about something, you want to learn a lot about it. And every day I wake up and I see that there's more use cases coming out, things that we hadn't really thought of when we started the business that are just incredibly exciting. So you gotta stay agile. You got to be willing to learn a lot about the customers and the problems that they have. We're not talking about issues like how can a drone maintain 20 megabits per second uplink speed 1,000 feet in the air, right? That's totally different than the initial requirements of how do we keep a water meter connected and pinging it once every 45 minutes, right? Totally different kind of requirements. So if you can roll with the punches, there's going to be some models that look super attractive as far as like what they actually could do. I think a lot of for us like security was something we thought would be a little bit bigger, but there's just a lot of home security that's using Wi-Fi or LAN or something. So within IoT, your vertical is going to change, the use cases are going to change, and staying agile to that and being excited about the new things. That's what I think it takes to succeed as an IoT executive.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, Robert, this award is very well deserved because I was especially impressed when I went to one of the events put together by TL Communications, and you were there personally greeting guests at the elevator. I was blown away.
That was
So,
very funny. Yeah, we take turns. I wouldn't ask anybody on the team to do something that I wouldn't do. So we didn't hire a doorman. We just had like a rotating cast, and I was drafted as well. So yeah,
way to be a team player. Congratulations. And
thank
congratulations
you.
on these awards and all your success. And we wish you continued success in the year ahead. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks. Couldn't be more excited about the awards and what's in store for Teal. So thanks.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. How do you stay on the cutting edge with technology evolving so rapidly? Each moment, the world as we know it not only gets smarter, but also more intelligent. Advanced and evolving technologies like IoT, machine learning, AI, extended reality, and drones have the inherent ability to enhance business operations, change profit margins, and even transform entire cities. How will these advancements shape our digital future? The answer is still unknown. However, there is plenty of speculation as the volume and variety of data continues to increase. What emerging trends will drive digital transformation in the year ahead? Join IoT Marketing for the 2023 Emerging Trends edition of Industry Insights webinars to hear about the trends we feel will play a significant role in 2023 and beyond. Speaking and sponsorship opportunities are available. Please contact IoT Marketing to learn more and be sure to register for the live broadcast on Thursday, January 26th, 2023 at www.iotmktg.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Emerging Trends edition of Industry Insights webinars. I'm Tiffany Nielsen of IoT Marketing, and IoT Marketing is the one producing this content for you today. So we are so pleased that you could join us. And as we get started, I'd love to introduce my panel and starting with Rob Tiffany. Rob, how are you doing today?
Good. How's it going, Tiffany?
Excellent. And Rob is with Sustainable Logics. And we also have Matt Samuelson, and he is with Triodos. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
And we also have Vince Bradley of Abundant IoT. How are you doing, Vince?
Doing great, Tiffany. Good to see you.
And James Watson of the Glimpse Group. How are you doing today, James?
Very well, thank you.
And as we get started, let's just go around and say a few words about each of us to get to know our audience. And please, if you're watching in the chat, drop us a note on where you're watching from. I already see Ohio and Texas dropping us a line. So hello to you. And Rob, go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, been in the IoT game a long time. Helped design the architecture for Azure IoT at Microsoft. Designed the Lumada industrial IoT digital twin platform at Hitachi, and got to do a lot of 5G and connection stuff at Ericsson. And so lately, I've been building some IoT technology that helps around sustainability. Fun.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. And Matt Samuelson, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Triodos?
Sure. I'm the CTO of Triodos. I've been in the IoT space about 10 years, working in business development partner programs, training, writing, and the last year as CTO. And we do an IoT rapid implementation platform. Sorry, Rob, it's actually based on the AWS IoT platform, not the Azure one.
That's all right.
Great. Thanks, Matt. And Vince, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So came from the telecom industry and that channel, sort of the IT channel, when it kind of morphed into cloud, made a strategic transaction, sold the company to a unicorn to create AppSmart, which is a place to buy business services online, software. Today, we're at Abundant IoT, and we're super excited bringing EIoT, which is IoT with a focus on energy. So IoT, energy services, and blockchain to the channel. So super excited to talk more about it.
Thanks, Vince. And James, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of the Glimpse Group. We're a NASDAQ-listed immersive technology company. So we've got solutions across VR, AR, blockchain, Web3, all those things that go on to make this wonderful thing that people are calling the metaverse, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later. And I've been in marketing for over 25 years, starting at large creative agency and then moving into the technology sector. And so 10, 11 years in the immersive tech sector. So makes me a rather old hand in that sector, given it's quite new.
Love it. Thank you, James. And again, I'm Tiffany Nielsen. I'm the CMO of IoT Marketing. And we started the Industry Insights webinars and have gone through 29 now. This is our 29th webinar. So we've covered everything from manufacturing to transportation, logistics. And if you've missed some of those webinars, be sure to watch it on our on-demand channel and get ready for 23 emerging trends that we feel will be reshaping 2023. All right. And at this time, we will be seeing Vince and James here shortly, but let's go ahead and get this webinar started. And hello to Steve in DC. Feel free to continue to drop your locations in the chat and any questions that you have, and we'll get back to those during the webinar or at the end. All right, great. And we do have a few more people joining us here in the webinar. We've got Catherine Ficara of Solo Secure, as well as Robert Hamblett of Teal Communications. So we'll be hearing from them shortly. And to get things started, our first trend is IoT at scale, the Internet of Things. And it is predicted that in 2023 that there will be 43 billion connected devices, and that's according to Forbes. However, IoT Analytics projects that in 2023 we'll see the growth of IoT devices by 18%, which is only 14.4 billion, and by 2025 that could increase by 27 billion. So that's for IoT. There's also connected devices in general. But some of the reasons that we're seeing this sudden growth is that it's easier and faster and even cheaper than ever before. But Rob, do you feel that we'll hit 43 billion connected devices this year?
No, I don't. I'm going to go with the IoT analytics reports and other friends of mine, like Matt Hatton, some other people that are probably a little more down to earth. 14 billion sounds about right. You know, lots of people throw darts at a board. I totally get it. And predictions are fun. I think one thing that will give us a little bit of a burst, you know, we've talked about the chip shortage, which kind of held things back, certainly over the last couple of years with IoT devices and sensors, which affected everybody, right, in the space. But we're seeing a recovery of the supply chain and way more chips coming out. And so I think 2023 is going to see a loosening of that supply chain, and I think we'll get on a better trajectory for devices. Also, prices should come down as well. So I think that's going to help everybody who's in this game.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. And another reason that we're seeing such sudden growth is because of hyperscalers like AWS and Microsoft Azure, who are also contributing to this explosion of connected devices. But Matt, can you tell us what is an IoT implementation platform and how does Triodos work with hyperscalers like AWS to drive IoT adoption and help with a platform using such a platform as AWS?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we built our what we call our rapid introduction platform on the AWS IoT cloud. And the reason for that is, of course, the cloud capabilities that they offer worldwide. However, using their existing like IoT core and all their other stuff, it still takes a considerable amount of time to put together a functioning solution. I can tell you exactly the amount. It takes a couple of years and about 40 to 50,000 lines of code to integrate everything so that you function, so you have a functioning IoT application. Now we've done that, and with our platform, we are then able to basically bring on board a new customer and an IT solution of theirs in months instead of years, and instead of millions of dollars for 100,000 or slightly more or less. And I worked in the IT platform space, for the last 10 years, and really, what was needed was something that was easy to customize. So our platform basically I can bring up a new customer with a simulated version of their IoT device in a day, in a platform that has their logo and has customized application that meet their needs. Of course, that's just the initial cut. And then what typically happens in an engagement, we work with the customer for a couple of months and until they have a completed platform. But proof of concept can typically, if they have an IT device ready, that can be up in a week or two and complete with mobile apps and web apps. So that's basically what we've decided to do is to, bring IT to market in a faster and cheaper way.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And next, let's take a look at industry clouds. And industry clouds are essentially composable building blocks. And Rob, can you tell us some of your thoughts on industry clouds and cloud native platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. We started out way back when with kind of, I would say, generic clouds, horizontal platforms that with lots of Lego blocks to do almost anything you want. AWS kicked us off probably in 2005 when they did S3 and then Azure around 2010 and then GCP from Google later on. And so you got these hyperscalers and lots of other people are building clouds as well. And you're right, they usually have three different components. There's infrastructure as a service, which is kind of your first baby step, upload a virtual machine, which you see a lot of big companies doing. They call it lift and shift. PaaS, platform as a service, where you can take dependencies on a lot of those Lego blocks to make it easier for you to get to market faster with your solution, whether it's storage or compute or some kind of or a database or whatever. And then software as a service, SaaS, which you think of Salesforce.com and SaaS offerings. And so what we've seen in the last few years is some of the hyperscalers have built something literally called industry clouds, where they're tuning clouds specifically to vertical industries to accelerate. Could be manufacturing, could be sustainability, things like that. And so, absolutely seeing a more focus as opposed to the generic deal. The last comment I'll make, though, is about cloud native that you mentioned. Cloud native is kind of more of a power to the people kind of thing. Um, when you take dependencies on a lot of these platform services in one of the clouds, it can lock you into that cloud. Like if you built your solution using Lambda functions on AWS, your ability to move that to something else would be impossible. So this cloud native stuff, it's part of there's a cloud native foundation, and it's part of Linux Foundation and everything like that. And that's one where you're talking about containers and Kubernetes and orchestrating containers in a way that you could run on any cloud, on-prem, things like that. And so that's kind of what cloud native is. No shortage of activity in that space for sure.
Thanks, Rob. And Matt, how does IoT fit in with industry clouds, and how can IoT address industry specific strategic use cases?
Well, what we offer is basically an IT application that can obviously be deployed within any particular industry cloud. Now, large corporations used to do this type of stuff on their own, but an interesting example is Siemens, the huge energy equipment manufacturer, and also a lot of medical and other things. They basically dumped their own efforts and went with AWS. And I think the reason they did that was they want to be able to buy into what other companies were offering as part of AWS services. So we fit in as a software component, as an application, and any company can use our IT solution within their AWS infrastructure. So that's uh, then, as far as specific industries. Well, right now we are kind of agnostic. We're industry focused, so we're not particularly concerned about these open cloud activities because industrial corporations tend to want to lock down their platforms. But what we will obviously do over time as we gain customers in particular areas, we add capabilities to our platform with general releases, and those are new capabilities of integration with other services or external systems. It can be new capabilities, integration with AI and machine learning capabilities. And as we get more customers and customize our application, we kind of add that to our platform. So we will then be able to support industry clouds within different industry verticals.
Perfect. And Matt, are IoT platforms cloud native?
Uh, no, they're not. There are a lot of IT platforms out there. There used to be 500, 5 years ago. They are now getting fewer and fewer. Uh, there will always be companies, particularly IT device companies, that have felt the need to offer a platform as part of their offerings, as part of the ability of selling devices. So we're going to be living with 5 to 10 different IT platforms. The reason we choose AWS is they happen to be the market leader.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. And next, let's take a look at edge computing. And for edge computing is the distributed computing paradigm. But what's new with edge computing this year? Well, we're seeing Kubernetes and machine learning happening at the edge, but it's actually deployed at the core and then pushed to the edge. And Mats, can you give us some examples of IoT edge computing and the capabilities of IoT edge computing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons we selected AWS was that I took a look at what they were doing as far as edge computing. And there are two areas of IT. One is the device itself, where you typically use embedded microcontrollers or microcomputers. And AWS offer a free real-time operating system that is integrated with both the computing and the security architecture of AWS. The other part of IoT is gateways, whereby sitting between the IoT devices and the cloud. And the reason you typically need a gateway is in order to connect to the cloud, you need to reach it via the internet somehow. And if you're dealing with Bluetooth or some other devices, you need to kind of go through a gateway to get to the cloud. And that was another capability that AWS has, and they've been actually supporting machine learning in that for quite some time. And it's called a green grass, and it is work runs within typically a Linux environment. We've actually gone ahead and done a full integration with Raspberry Pi because there is now so that's already integrated with our platform and that runs the Raspberry Pi. So again, as far as edge computing, you can obviously always do your own. When you go with one of the big platforms, and I will say this, Acer offer the same type of capabilities. They also have edge computing support, and it's just a matter of making sure that you get what you need.
Great. Thanks, Matt. And another trend that we'll see more of this year is Open RAN. And not to be confused with open source, although I'm sure that we'll see more open source in the year ahead as well. Open RAN will be impactful to the mobile industry, but Rob, what are your thoughts on Open RAN and how will the innovation surrounding this be impactful in the year ahead?
Yeah, Open RAN is a disruptive technology. Just for our audience, RAN stands for Radio Access Network. So when you think of a cellular network and you see those cell towers, um, that air interface where it connects from either your cell phone or your IoT devices, that's kind of that part they're talking about. And so over the years, mobile operators, that you probably use today with your own phones and stuff like that, they've bought equipment from, like my last employer, Ericsson or Nokia or Huawei, that makes really fit for purpose ultra high end hardware that's specific for doing radio access networks in order to have incredible uptime, because you don't want that whole network to go down. The problem is it's very expensive. So when you build the specific hardware tuned just for radio access, um, it's as pricey as it gets. So the trend over the last several years, the first trend was just like we saw in regular computing over the last 2 decades, the rise of virtualization, right? When you had VMware and then the clouds, AWS and Azure and others, they kind of built their clouds using virtualization technology. And so you saw virtualizing network functions was the next stage. And then this latest stage, though, with Open RAN is kind of to break free completely of this very expensive fit for purpose hardware. And so trying to put that capability of how to run cellular networks in software is the big takeaway, and use commodity hardware. Because if you think about all the hyperscale clouds or Facebook, they all use low cost commodity servers because they know servers are failing all the time, but they build kind of a software fabric that makes sure everything stays up, right? Even though there's failures happening. And so telcos wanted to also get away from expensive hardware, use commodity stuff. And so Open RAN is a way to do that. It's still early days. People are trying it out. Rakuten's doing it in Japan. I think AT&T is playing around with it, maybe Vodafone as well. So it'll be interesting. It'll probably be, one step forward, two steps back, because they may not get the performance in pure software as they're getting in hardware right now, but I think it's a tidal wave, and eventually we'll probably all be using that kind of technology in the future.
Great. Thanks, Rob. And Matt, what is the role of Open RAN in IoT, and what are some Open RAN solutions that support IoT?
Well, for me, I'm actually an old telecom guy. So for me, Open RAN is a bit of a kind of a buzzword of the mobile industry of selling their new capabilities. Uh, LoRaWAN has been around for 5, 7 years, and it's a kind of low bit rate connectivity technology, and it's offered by major suppliers around the world. For example, Comcast has a solution for this country. So from an IoT perspective, connectivity is connectivity, and the question is, how do you connect to the IoT device? And from an IT platform perspective, that means two things. It needs that you need to do some level of integration with the connectivity method, and the method you use is pretty much decides the are integrated with AT&T's SIM provisioning platform for uh, something called LTEM and NB-IoT, which is low cost, bandwidth IoT connectivity services. So Open RAN will, from an IT platform perspective, mean something very similar. And that is, there will be a way for the outside to connect using that, and the other side of the one side of the Open RAN will connect to the IT device. The other side needs to connect to the IT platform through the internet. So the question with each of these technologies is, what's the amount of integration that I need to do? So that's another thing that we, whenever we have now integrated with one leading, uh, provider of cellular IoT connectivity, and it's just a matter of when new technology comes along or when new operators come along, we just go ahead and do that integration. And it's not rocket science, and in doing an integration like that, takes us about a month to do. And the question is more of is it associated with the customer rather than doing it speculatively.
Thanks, Matt. And I mean, for my parents that don't know much about technology, this all sounds like rocket science. So Don't feel bad if it does seem a little high tech. And next, let's take a look at a couple more trends. Next, we have super apps. And ultimately, super apps are just bringing what may be somewhat unrelated services all into one place conveniently. And Matt's, is IoT a super app? And how do you mix and match with IoT?
I think it's a super app. As I said, we have a platform that can be deployed within an AWS cloud instance, and our job is to integrate with other capabilities. I recently, learned something about the IBM's offering of artificial intelligence, and they have, APIs into their Watson platform. And I think those are the type of things that, so we can say that Watson is a super app, and it's a connectivity and integration game. And one of the trends we're seeing here, which is continue to be strengthened here in 2023, is that it becomes easier and easier to do these type of integrations. And uh, our platform, we actually defined around microservices, and microservices is, an excellent platform to be able to, from within an application environment that is our own, to integrate with outside super applications through microservices calls.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And trend number 6 is private 5G networks because the technology offers more reliable connectivity, faster data rates, and lower latency. It also offers greater scalability, security, and network control than previous communication technologies. And Rob, do you feel that we'll see more private 5G networks in 2023? And what will be the benefit of these networks?
Yeah, absolutely. Started seeing people kicking the tires on private 5G. 2019 started seeing a lot of manufacturers, industrial companies. So I'll give you two views of it. If you're with a mobile operator, 5G has this one capability called network slicing, where just like in networks you might have today, a local area network, you can change the quality of service for particular parts of the network. And so there's this notion of network slicing where mobile operators can give a dedicated slice of a 5G network with certain characteristics, latency, speed, things like that, that's locked down just for a particular use case or a customer. Then there's what most people think of with private 5G right now, is where it's unrelated to the mobile operator at all. It's just like how if you're at a big company, you've got your own network that you built, Ethernet, LAN, Wi-Fi access points everywhere, and it's unrelated to a mobile operator. That capability is also here with 5G. The ability to do that's been around for a while, to be honest with you. You've been able to do LTE as a private network as well. The problem was, as a private company wanting to do that with cellular networks, and Matt knows this from being in telecom, this all works on spectrum that's auctioned out to operators, and the spectrum costs tens of billions of dollars. And so it's licensed spectrum, unlike Wi-Fi, which is unlicensed spectrum, or Matt's talked about LoRaWAN, that's unlicensed spectrum under 1 gigahertz. And so in the past, if you wanted to do a private LTE network, there's gear to let you do it, and it's basically could be a replacement for Wi-Fi, let's say, but you still had to get spectrum. You might have to go begging to an operator to say, hey, can you carve off from spectrum for me to do it? And who knows if they'll say yes or not. So a new phenomenon in the United States, there's something called CBRS. And there's a few in Sweden. I know Germany has something equivalent. But basically, it's set up by the government where it took a block of spectrum. This is a frequency up in the air. If to make it real for most people, think about your FM radio. You're at 101 point whatever. So you're at some frequency spectrum, and the government, the U.S. government, did this thing. It's called CBRS. I know it sounds like CB radio, Breaker 19, and they're making that open for private companies to have. And there's a intermediary that you work through to get a license. And basically, what you do is you say, I have a corporate campus or I have a factory in this county, in this state, and I need this 5-mile radius of spectrum for me to do a private 5G network. and you pay for that, and it's not very expensive, and then the government lets you have that, and then you can have a private 5G network. And why would you do that versus just using Wi-Fi, right? 5G is way more secure, it's faster, has better characteristics around roaming, like a person moving through a building, for instance, or heavy metal objects in a factory. The RF interference is not as bad. And also, you don't have to worry. You can have interference when you're using unlicensed spectrum, like you do on Wi-Fi or LoRa or something. You can get interference from other people using that same frequency, like 2.4 gigahertz, like on Wi-Fi, for instance. When you buy this dedicated stuff, nobody can bump into your radio waves, is the big takeaway. Throughput, better quality of service. So I know that's a mouthful, but that's basically what it is.
Great. Thank you, Rob. And next, let's go ahead and take a look at cybersecurity. Of course, cybersecurity is going to be a big trend this year. It was a big trend last year. It's going to continue to be a big trend because as more devices get connected, that's that many more vulnerabilities that are out there. And Rob, how important do you feel IoT security is?
It could be possibly the most important thing. And the part that's talked about the least, unfortunately. People usually talk about the what of the solution. I'm building this IoT solution to get some kind of value, make money, safety, whatever it is. And security, so many times, unfortunately, is an afterthought. And so, one of the things we saw last year and the year before a little bit was this rise of a term called zero trust, where it's a philosophy, but it's also the way you secure things. You don't trust anything. In the past, we might say, well, once you're inside our network from the outside world, there's a wall or a moat around my castle. And once you're inside, I'll let you do whatever you want. With zero trust, you're re-authenticating at every step of the way. No one gets trusted. Your IoT device, your data isn't trusted anywhere. So let me walk you through it. So right now with IoT, you've got your endpoint device, right? Running whatever, a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino or whatever it is, and you're sending data. Hopefully you have encryption on the device, but not everybody does. And you're sending data over probably an SSL tunnel over the internet potentially, or it could be a VPN. You're sending authentication. You could be sending a security token or an X509 certificate to authenticate, hey, this is who I am and these are my security credentials. When you get to the IoT platform, like if it's AWS IoT Core or whatever, it authenticates and says, do I know who you are? Oh, yeah. Do you have the right password, basically, your certificate or your token or your API key? And then it lets you in. The difference is, it usually puts it in some kind of message queue. Everybody has a different name for it. Instead of once that happens saying you're good, you're going to keep re-authenticating as you different hops. Like you may hop to hydrate a digital twin. Your data may hop again to do analytics. All those new hops where that packet's going along, the notion is re-authenticating every time. I know that sounds very cumbersome, but that's kind of where we're getting to. Attacks we've seen in the past with IoT have been botnets. Like the most famous one was the Mirai botnet, which took over millions. Yeah, not quite a billion IoT devices. I think it even took down one country in Africa. This was several years ago. And devices are still the weak link, and that's where we have to focus on, when you buy from a particular manufacturer, making sure that device itself is secure. Even if you secure the tunnel for your IoT pathway, the device itself, can it be attacked? Is it using a default password? Which a lot of times the hackers go for low hanging fruit like that. So anyway, you could talk for hours on that, but yeah, it's a critical thing and it'll always be top of mind, I think.
Thanks, Rob. And another trend in cybersecurity is cybersecurity mesh, which uses a holistic approach to ensure that the security of every device within its perimeter is safe. So that's another new trend for 2023. And it kind of goes along with the concept of data fabric. And data fabric is an environment that utilizes intelligent and automated systems to facilitate consistent capabilities across various endpoints. And we're going to discuss some trends surrounding digital twins, which sort of tie into this here shortly. But Mats, can you tell us your thoughts on data fabric and how it will be a trend in 2023?
Well, I mean, data fabric basically, talks about making data accessible to throughout the fabric. And one of the reasons for not doing our own IoT platform, but to actually base it on the AWS IT offering, is that a lot AWS cloud computing as a business, they address all of these trends, and obviously, data fabric is one of them. From our perspective, data sources, we create obviously data sources in an IoT solution, and that also means that we can make them available to external companies and others who want access to that particular data. So, as part of the AWS architecture that we use, we support all of their data storage capabilities, anything from lakes to time series data. And, part of our implementation is through APIs and microservices to make that available to other consumers within the data fabric. So I view IoT as being very much of a creator of data for a data fabric, and then it uses data from other sources. So, for example, I mean, just a silly one, we quickly did the integration. So when we did a demo tracking service using narrowband IoT a couple of years ago, the first thing we did was report the weather that was associated with that particular car. And that's silly stuff, but it's getting more and more sophisticated. And IoT is both a creator of this type of data and making it available in data fabric and the consumer.
Great. That was a great explanation. Thank you, Mats. And next, we're going to hear from Robert Hamblett on the trend of connected everything. And we'll be back after the interview with James Watson. So let's hear that
It's
interview.
about getting creative about IoT, imagining a world where every single data point possibly has something of value, and then getting that connected. So new use cases, new device types, new functionality. It's a really exciting way to frame the IoT, the Internet of Everything. Well, like now let's get everything connected. So
Great. And when you say connected everything, what types of people, processes, information, and things do you see people connecting the most to?
I mean, we're talking mostly about like machine devices. So that's the primary kind of connected everything that we talk about. And so it's something that isn't consumer connected. So it's something that isn't in the hand of a person. It can be a car. It can be a wheel on a car. It can be a sensor in a parking lot. It can be a garage door opener. All that's got to get connected. All of it has a business model that can make sense. And everybody's trying to figure out how then they get that thing connected. So there's lots of different radio technologies to choose from, lots of different functional platforms to make that happen. And yeah, it's just literally everything is going to be connected at some point.
And so, what role does teal play in a connected everything world?
So we focus on cellular programmability. So if you're building a device that is independently connected, possibly mobile, and it needs an IP address, that's where cellular technology makes a lot of sense. And we provide a programmable layer so that you can change that identity. So think of us like an app store. We've built this platform where an enterprise can bring a thing into the world, and then they have the flexibility and the capability to make it kind of talk on whatever network they would want it to talk on, as far as cellular is concerned.
And what other trends are you watching in the year ahead?
AI is one that has been really hot button lately with ChatGPT 3, Dolly 2. Now there's talks today. It just started trending about GPT 4 and how many different neural nodes that has. And AI just means that you can take in a lot more information that you wouldn't want to process as a human, right? Like if I gave you a sheet of 100 million sensor readings about different pipes in a municipality, probably not very engaged by that process. But when you connect AI to that, you can drive a lot of really cool insights, really big data, and you can have it make assumptions and guess about what that could mean. Not just like give me the average of all these data points, right? That's not AI, but what can I actually do with this information? What might this mean for the rest of the business, the rest of the deployment, the rest of the country, even if it's a larger enough scale data set. But AI is something in 2023 that I would definitely look at if you're thinking about networking at all. All that data is going somewhere. AI is making huge leaps and bounds. It's really going to change how that information is utilized.
Thank you, Robert. And my final question is, what is your prediction for 2023?
I'm going to predict the same thing that I've predicted every year since 5G came out, and that is that we're finally going to see a new use case for 5G beyond just transport. So we'll start to see like cloud gaming maybe take off. That's been one that there have been a few hardware partners of the different carriers deploy. I think autonomous vehicles have a lot of compute they want to get off of the car and onto a tower. So I think mobile edge compute is something that we'll start to see the first viable business models come out in 2023.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And again, congratulations on your awards that you received during our Industry Insights IoT Awards, IoT Executive of the Year, and IoT Rising Star of the Year for Teal. So, congratulations on all your success, and we wish you the best in the year ahead.
We're very grateful and very excited about what this industry is going to do this year. So thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. And we are back. We hope you enjoyed that interview with Robert Hamblett on the trend of connected everything. And we will hear from Matt Samuelson again later in the webinar, but we would like to bring on James Watson. How are you doing, James?
Good, Tiffany. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's jump into our next topic, digital twins. And digital twins have been around, but they're definitely multiplying, we'll say. And they're definitely getting more advanced. And James, how do you see AR and VR expanding the potential for digital twins?
So I think first of all, I should probably caveat what I'm going to say with the fact that, as a CMO, I tend to come at this more from how the market views this technology. So I think the way Rob will describe a digital twin and I will is probably quite different, but I think that's good because we've got different perspectives. I kind of put it in definitely a more simplistic way, but probably a way that a lot of sort of business owners and people within large organizations would see it if they're not in that more technical phase. So Rob, see what you think about how I view it. It might slightly offend you, but hopefully not. But I mean, I think the interesting thing on that point from digital twins, VR, AR, how it all integrates is the term digital twin, I think, means different things to different people. In the pure sense of the word, and I'm sure how Rob would see it, is you have a real world entity, say, it's a machine. You then have a virtual representation, and then you tie it together with data from the real world that you represent within that digital representation of the real world piece. But the market uses digital twin in lots of different ways. You'll have someone talk about digital twin and it is purely, they've created a prototype of a yet to be built product and put it in VR. And they'll be able to look at it in VR. They'll be able to market it. They'll be able to get stakeholders involved and say, hey, this is going to be amazing. We're going to do this or whatever. That isn't really a digital twin. If you want to be a purist, that is a virtual recreation put into a virtual environment and being viewed. But it's not connected to the real world, which I would say technically doesn't make it a digital twin. But the market would say, yeah, we've got a digital twin because we've got this, virtual version of this new jet engine we're designing. Okay, well, that doesn't necessarily play out. So I think there's confusion in the market as to what it can be. So I think, first of all, it's important to either define it as one thing or say, hey, you know what, digital twin can mean lots of different things, which I think, certainly from a marketing perspective, you have to listen to the market. And if a perception of the digital twin is just a virtual object, okay, do you want to spend a load of time correcting them? Or do you want to say, fine, I get what you mean. It's not really a digital twin. but we'll go with it. So that's interesting. And there's some amazing stuff happening. I think digital twin is one of the key use cases within the whole sort of industrial metaverse thing approach. And there are some brilliant examples out there. So BMW created a digital twin of their entire factory using NVIDIA's Omniverse platform. And you could either view that, you could view that desktop, you could view that in VR. And they found that really hugely beneficial. Having spoken to someone who was involved in the project, they said they changed something like 30% of their decisions. They changed based on having run through scenarios with a digital twin, which is incredible. It doesn't mean to say what was done before was wrong and wouldn't have got fixed as the factory was kind of being built, but obviously be able to do it before you go and build it, hugely more effective and also hugely more efficient. So there are those sorts of examples that digital twins are being used in a really effective way. And I think ultimately what it's going to do, it's going to drive a lot of uptake of immersive technology in order to for people to create a digital twin of an environment, put them into that environment virtually, enable them to walk around that environment, enable them to experience it, come back, feedback, iterate on that. So recreate the environment differently, put someone back in it, get them to run through a process, understand where the pain points are, and then completely rework it. And this is all done, using a digital twin. Therefore, you're not having to, do anything in the real world or go ahead and build costly prototypes or dummies of production lines. So, I think it's a really exciting area. I think there's room to, broaden the definition of it for the broader market. And I think it's going to have a lot of really impactful use cases as things progress.
Very interesting. I'm so curious, Rob. What are your thoughts on trends for digital twins in the year ahead? And what are your thoughts on James' perspective on this?
Well, as the doctor of digital twins, I just want to applaud James for making this real for people because, we all have to put on our marketing hats and make things relatable to people. And we can't just be engineers all the time because you're right. If people don't understand it, then they won't understand how to use it. And then they probably won't use it. So marketing is hugely important to get the message out correctly.
Great to
Yeah,
hear.
I got into digital twins in 2016. I built that Lumada thing platform at Hitachi, and it was a digital twin IoT platform, and really could see the value of it. Back then we're thinking it was in a manufacturing specific, kind of scenario, and so you're thinking of digital twins of a machine, right, or a bullet train or something like that, and processes, and so I've been reading about it. This guy, Dr. Greaves, came up with it back in 2002. He was a professor at University of Michigan, and NASA jumped onto that as well. It was actually a guy at NASA, John Vickers, who coined the term, but like in 2010. But it's been a fringe technology, no doubt about it, for the last couple of decades, used by NASA and some manufacturers to model things. Now, there'll be other people who say, well, when I look at it, it looks like something I've been doing for a long time. I certainly have flashbacks. I've been up in the Seattle area for a long time. I remember doing work with Boeing back in the 90s. And I remember when they went from designing an aircraft with blueprints and creating prototypes, as James talks about, to their first experience using the CATIA software system from Dassault Systems to digitally design an aircraft. And it was a big leap for them, and you saw Airbus kind of doing the same thing. But like James said, it's a heck of a lot cheaper when you need to try things, iterate things, screw up, make mistakes. When you make those mistakes digitally, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than when you make them physically with a prototype. We often talk about digital twins. They're used at the design phase, they're used for simulations, and they're used kind of at runtime. A lot of people in IoT who are using them, and there's not a lot of people doing it yet, they're getting there, kind of use it at runtime. You describe that physical object digitally, all its properties. This car has 4 tires, and I care about the tire pressure, and it's got an engine, and here's the RPM, and things like that. So a lot of people do the runtime. And also, like what James talked about, should it be connected or not, right? IoT is the plumbing. that creates something a lot of purists might call the twinning rate, just because we need to invent new buzzwords, of course. But what is that? The physical object. I got my physical object here, and it's got to send data to my digital version of the same thing, because you want it, because to stay up to date, and so that data is flowing in there, and you have the latest state, you have a historical state of that thing, its life cycle, and so because you want a high fidelity digital thing, and then of course, as I always overdo, you have to just go back to everybody who watched Apollo 13, and Tom Hanks and everybody, that in that scenario, they had a physical twin, a copy of the spaceship down in Houston at Mission Control. And luckily you had Gary Sinise. I did think it was kind of weird that you had Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan in the same movie again, and troubleshooting the spaceship down in Houston because they had a replica. But guess what NASA and a lot of people figured out? We're not always going to be able to have an actual physical replica of a spaceship or a machine or whatever. And so we need to learn how to build high fidelity digital versions of those for troubleshooting and health and performance and things like that. It's getting easier. 2022, I saw the words digital twin in media every day. That was new for me. And so that tells me that the trend is growing when you just see it everywhere all the time. When people are talking about it, it's coming alive. So I think it's going to get hot in 2023.
And I mean, a lot of those posts were coming from you, Rob. I saw a lot of digital twin posts in 2022 from you, Rob.
What
So
else am I going to talk about?
I love it. And next, let's take a look at immersive technology. And there's augmented reality combining with artificial intelligence. That's a big trend. There's sports tech. We're definitely seeing a lot of adoption there when it comes to augmented and virtual reality. And digital health, it's becoming more and more adopted, and healthcare seeing more immersive tech. But James, what are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing for immersive technology?
I mean, I think something that's really important and has obviously evolved over the past few years, and I think will continue to evolve this year, is the hardware itself is such an important part of this. And you can't mention hardware without also mentioning Apple. They've been rumored to be bringing out some form of headset for probably the past 5 years. I don't know. Every year it's like they're going to announce it, and everyone gets overexcited, and someone does some stupid drawing of what they think it's going to be. There's still one circulating that looks like a scuba mask, which is just really bizarre, because as though Apple would ever create something that ugly. And so that I'm bored of the rumors. I'm sure you are as well, Rob. But this might be the year. The rumor mill's going a little bit stronger. There seems to be a bit more substance to the potential of them bringing out a mixed reality headset in the summer. I hate to say that, and obviously someone will watch this back in the summer and go, yeah, that guy was just regurgitating another rumor. But whatever happens, they will come out with something at some point. They're doing something. They're not just twiddling their thumbs. So they're doing something, and that will come out. If it's this year, I really hope so, but we'll see. That is really going to shift the market. It'll be quite a high-end device, but with Apple bringing something out, and there's the rumor mill is going that it'll be able to capture your face, so that when you join Zoom calls, potentially actually it's a much better representation of you rather than some strange looking avatar. Their gesture, the ability to see your Mac whilst you're in that virtual environment. So they'll do all this amazing stuff that they'll integrate with their product. So I think the hardware is really key, because without the right hardware, these amazing use cases stay very strong in certain sort of sectors in a B2B perspective, but they won't really start to have big impacts on our lives until the hardware really gets to that sort of form factor, comfort. Price is pretty good at the moment. I think the price is actually, very reasonable. I think, the current Oculus Quest is, I don't know, $300 or something. It's pretty good. It's not a massive blocker. So I think that's coming down. No one's going to stick a VR headset on their head for more than probably 40 minutes without it feeling pretty uncomfortable. So the actual hardware itself will then unlock, the adoption. It'll drive all, these amazing use cases. But of course, there are, as you said here quite rightly, there are some amazing uses of it already in certain sectors. A really big use case, obviously healthcare. There's some challenges there for them to use it for more the sort of procedural piece, to help augment operations and stuff. It's great for training. When you bring it into live operations, you do bring an element of risk, fidelity, all those questions, but training is amazing. So training is a use case that really is strong across every sector. Imagine previous projects I've worked on, working with things like energy companies. You train someone on an offshore oil platform how to put out a fire. I mean, you're going to make people safer. You're going to save lives. On a more monetary perspective, you're going to save money as an organization, because anyone who injures themselves ends up costing you a lot of money. And you can replicate that in VR. So, there's some superb use cases. I think the big development will be Apple coming in, raise the bar, raise the awareness, have a beautiful product. It'll cost a load of money, but we won't care because we love Apple products. And I think that's going to be, that's going to have a big impact on the market. And if they don't launch it this year, please delete this part of the webinar, please.
Okay, deal. And Rob, what other industries do you see adopting immersive tech? And please let us know in the chat, what's your favorite immersive tech use case? But Rob, what other industries do you feel are adopting this technology?
Yeah, well, you know what? I will give you a downer thing, just to, combat all the hope and stuff from James. I'm so sorry. You may have read, because there's stuff no, but there's stuff happening in the news that we see. These layoffs that we're seeing a lot of tech companies happening are impacting folks. I have lots of friends that, I live right near Microsoft. That's where I spent most of my career. It's impacting stuff in and around the HoloLens. I advise the military, the U.S. government military, a few times a year, actually, on using all kinds of emerging tech for war fighters. And, that's probably not everybody's cup of tea, but, whatever. And you may have read that the Army sent back 130,000 HoloLenses back to Microsoft because the soldiers were feeling nauseated and whatever. And so we're all trying our best to perfect this technology. And people have been working on this for a long time. And it just probably depends on the scenario. And so, I've seen good success with Magic Leap. I've got friends who work there. They're having really good success. We'll have to see what these layoffs have an impact at Google if it affects. There was some talk about getting some new glasses again. Finally, even after a long time of not seeing anything from Google. And James is right. We've been hearing Apple's going to launch something for years. Who knows? We'll see. And of course, with digital twins, I have a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, this VR thing is a digital twin." It's a view of the digital twin. The digital twin is still a data structure, but you can represent something digitally by interpreting what that data structure and data tells you. And so, like James talked about offshore drilling rigs, I see that all, oil and gas type deals. They love to show 3D models of offshore drilling rigs, and they say, that's a digital twin. It's a view of the twin. Obviously, people are saying that digital twins are the foundation of the metaverse, if we want to get really immersive here. And so we'll see how that plays out, kind of for creating avatars, right, of people. So pretty interesting stuff. I think there's more to come for sure.
And I totally agree, Rob. And there are elements of the use of immersive technology that are absolutely spot on, and there are other elements where I think they overextend. I think the army thing, it made massive headlines when they first signed their deal, because it was, whatever it was, I can't remember. It was a huge figure, right? 400 million,
Yeah.
4 billion. It was just off the scale. But they're trying to use mixed reality headsets in daylight environments as well, right? I mean, it was really pushing the technology. You can use
Yeah.
mixed reality, it's great in a controlled environment, it's all good. But when you're out, in daylight, when you're moving around, and you can't move. If you're trying in a lab, you can use. You tend to move quite slowly. If you're out with someone trying to shoot you, you know, you're moving everywhere, right? So I think they massively overextended with that. I mean, they obviously thought they could crack it. They haven't. um, and that then has ripples throughout the industry. Oh, it didn't work, doesn't work. Well, actually, they were really pushing far with that. They were
Yeah.
really. There's still lots of really good things of it, but that was going too far, and invariably it kind of tends to affect other sectors with the perception of it as well. So, but yeah, I totally get
Sure.
some areas are challenged, other areas, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah. We just got to keep iterating.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yes, and the scary thing, the sad thing, is when it negatively affects other people who are working on that stuff and they decide to throw up their hands,
Yeah,
because you don't want them to stop.
yeah.
Because we'll get there eventually.
Because of the army situation, I think lots of people think that HoloLens, was a failure. It was an amazing product. It was amazing. It just wasn't used in the right way, and therefore people can say it failed. And we'll talk a bit
Right.
more about the metaverse because that's in a similar situation, but we'll come on to that.
And here's the metaverse.
There
Speaking
you
of the
go.
metaverse, that's our next trend.
Amazing. How did I know that? It's weird. It's just crazy.
I know, right? And one of the trends that we're seeing is there are more rumors going around that they are attempting to involve all five senses into the metaverse. And it's also this sense of gamification. And so, James, do you think that the metaverse will live up to its hype?
100% no in the short term. Absolutely. I mean, this is something I've spoken about quite a bit, and you know, the hype has just got out of control. Meta changed their name. What is it now? Over a year, well over a year ago now, and everyone just went, "Wow!" Well, metaverse. Oh, what's the metaverse? So it's a virtual environment that we're all going to operate in and meet in and work in and do all this sort of stuff. Oh, wow, that sounds amazing. I'll go buy a VR headset and then I'll jump in the metaverse. And then they're like, oh, hang on, I can't. I look like this weird avatar and my friends aren't on it. And how do I connect with them? And what's the platform? And quite frankly, the hype lasted, really peaked probably 6 months in. And then people realized the metaverse isn't here, and therefore people flip from this is the best thing ever to it's failed. A bit like poor old Microsoft with their HoloLens. The metaverse has failed. Well, it hasn't failed because it doesn't exist yet, in any meaningful way. So that's a really dangerous situation to be in because once again, perception is very important. There's a really good way of looking at this, which is something called Amara's law. Have you heard of Amara's law, Rob?
I have not. No.
Okay, you might have heard it in a different way, but I've picked up on it as Amara's law. It's this guy Roy Amara, who was a Stanford professor, and it basically says that I think other people have used it. It basically says that new technology is our expectations as human beings of new technology in the short term are completely unrealistic. Right? We have huge expectations. Something lands, and we go, "This is going to change everything. It's incredible." When it doesn't do that in a very short term, we decide it's failed, and we go, okay, that's gone. Meanwhile, the technology keeps developing, right? So we go, wow, it's amazing, technology it's failed, but the technology keeps progressing, and then 10 years hence, that technology then does what was expected to happen straight away, and therefore it's a mismatch of our expectations versus what's realistic, and that's this chap Roy Amara kind of got coined as Amara's law, and that's definitely where we're at with the metaverse. Which puts it in a very challenging position now because something that's considered to have failed before it's actually fully formed is really difficult. And how you kind of if someone it's a little bit like, well, it doesn't work, it doesn't do anything amazing. You have to agree with them, but you have to say, but what you expected from it was unrealistic, but that doesn't really work. So it's easy with someone to say it's failed because it doesn't do anything like people were told it would do yet. In 5 years, it will evolve hugely. In 10 years, it'll be somewhere close. In 15 years, we'll probably be there. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think the interesting thing is, as part of that question is, can it survive the hype? Absolutely, it will survive the hype. because it will continue, much as with Amara's law. It'll keep progressing. Things will develop, interoperability, persistence, all these things that are needed for the metaverse to come to fruition. It will survive. It's just going to be a rocky road for the next, I don't know, probably 12, 24 months.
Interesting. And I like this law that you were talking about, Amara's law. That's interesting.
Amara's law, yeah.
And Rob, what are you seeing for the industrial metaverse?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. I've heard people at Microsoft and some others talking about the industrial metaverse. I guess I'll give you my where digital twins kind of underpin. Been working on the notion and building tech around this idea of maybe a corporate metaverse, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be with immersive VR goggles or anything, but the notion of not to get too geeky here, but in an industrial setting or a farm setting or any business setting, the reason you have that company, that organization, is there's a series of jobs to be done. And you may have heard all that management stuff way back when about the jobs to be done type thing. You have tasks that need to be carried out one time or multiple times. And we create something called a role around that. And we hire a human being to do that traditionally. As we move forward, we're getting to the point where maybe a digital thing could do that job, right? And that's how we kind of get into this thing. I kind of write about and talk about the notion of thinking about IoT and digital twins as an employee. For instance, there's a lot of tasks that can be carried out kind of with that digital twin defines. Let's make it simple. You've got a bunch of roles. Let's say there's a role of a salesperson. You could define, this is almost like an employee handbook. But it's also how I describe digital twins when you say, well, it's like the owner's manual in your car. Tesla, you get a real digital twin. Most cars, you get an owner's manual. Well, there's like an employee manual that says a salesperson or a secretary or whatever this role is. Here's this list of definitions of what that role is, what you're supposed to do every day, who you're interacting with. There's no reason why, and this is what I'm dabbling in, is you can't, to create this industrial or corporate metaverse, define these roles as digital twins. And the way we interact with people in other departments or in sales or whatever, why couldn't you do that like we do in the digital world with APIs, right? And this is not too crazy because the rise of AWS came from a big document that Bezos wrote a long, long time ago, where he was like, the divisions in our company need to communicate with each other via APIs, just like we do on the web and how we build our tech. Very interesting, forward-thinking stuff. That document and a new way of thinking gave rise to them building AWS out of Amazon. So it's not too far-fetched when we talk about something like this industrial metaverse. If you're kind of thinking along my bizarre train of thought that I'm giving you here of roles being defined by digital twins, acting upon with agents and IoT and connecting to different groups with APIs. Even if you're not totally fulfilling the role digitally, because you've also probably heard of technologies like RPA, robotic process automation, which is kind of screen scraping. You may remember in the 90s, tens of millions of Win32 apps were built running on PCs, which actually run most business today, except for financial services, which are still run by mainframes and COBOL. This RPA thing is, can I use a bot on your deal to push buttons and things in a workflow on all those Win32 apps that were in Visual Basic and things back then? That blends into this too. So I think there's a lot of digital jobs to be done, actually. And even if you don't have it, remember when we came out with PDAs in the 90s, the Palm and then Pocket PC and everything? There's no reason why you couldn't have this kind of digital avatar that encompasses what your role is alongside with you to help keep you on track. We obviously we have reviews with our boss at the end of the year. Your commitments, did you stay on track? Did you do you can imagine having this little assistant that says, I know what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to talk to and everything, and I'm going to keep you on the straight and narrow. Anyway, there's my bizarre rant that's vaguely related to the industrial metaverse.
That's a
I, s-
very unique perspective on that, Rob.
I
Based on
s-
some of the
But
news that I see come out
but
on
you know
industrial metaverse,
but
that's
you
a
know what? I write about stuff that sounds crazy sometimes or far fetched, but I'm a developer too. And so when I write about something, I actually will start writing the code to prove that it can happen so that I don't just feel like a total idiot to kind of keep myself on track there.
I still like letting people have jobs. I think that it's good. So this
I
assistant
agree.
type
and
concept that you
also, Rob, I remember my Palm Pilot very favorably. Oh my God, I loved
Yeah,
that. It
it's
was
a great
amazing.
device.
You look at it now, and it looks like
Absolutely.
something from a different era. It's amazing.
Pretty cool.
Pretty
Next,
cool.
let's take a look at Web3 and NFTs, and let's bring on Vince Bradley to talk to us more about Web3. He should be joining us now. All right. Hello, Vince. How are you doing?
Doing great, doing great. Great discussion. My Palm 7 came in handy. When you pull that antenna up, that was
Oh yeah,
always fun, right? Love the conversation.
loved
That
it.
was
To me,
awesome.
yeah, exactly. To me, Web3 really is all about decentralized networks, right? And we've talked a little bit about that. One of the most important social movements of our time, many people say that, is way more than just NFTs. There's a lot to unpack here. A good example I'd like to give is ISIS hacking YouTube, that kind of ended the confidence in Web 2. So ultimately, just the hacking that's been going on out there has been an issue, right, at the end of the day. A good example also is, you look at Gen Z, right? They're born in the cloud. They didn't know that there was the ability to have private data, right? And so, one of the predictions out there that I've heard from several is that, people will all have a data bank, and it's about really opting in rather than opting out, right? That's sort of the conversation that's going on there. So, again, it's a whole new world. It's an exciting world. Obviously, blockchain, decentralized storage, some of these different products that are out there. We talk about the Helium network. We talk about LongFi as it relates to Web3, and then we talk about decentralized storage. Those are two, Helium and Filecoin, two that we're currently working with. But it's an exciting space. A lot here to unpack. Great conversation.
Thanks, Vince. And one way that I heard Web3 explained during CES that I thought was just very simple and to the point was that Web 1 was our ability to read what's on the internet. Web 2, our ability to share information. And Web 3, now we can do it decentralized. So the ability to exchange without the centralization that takes place. And so there's also
Yeah.
NFT. And Web3 kind of complements NFTs. But James, do you feel that NFTs will fuel the trend of gamification that we mentioned earlier with the metaverse?
I think NFTs are a really interesting area because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in there with NFTs. There's a lot of yeah, it's a little bit snake oil sort of sales. It's like if you look at the price of Bored Ape Yacht Club, has sort of fallen through the floor. Obviously the crypto market as well has been hit pretty hard. There's a lot of activity in NFTs which is pretty much worthless, to be honest. And I think it's finding its feet. NFTs, as people will probably know, non-fungible tokens, unique pieces of digital collateral, and that might be. I've seen a perfume company created their perfume in what's Rob doing?
James, I'm going to right click on your NFT and download it.
Excellent. Okay, that's great. You just stick. I'll give you my crypto wallet, and you can just you can put the money in there. That'd be fine. Um, it's an area that it's really tricky. There was a perfume company that created an NFT of their perfume, but which is just everything was getting a bit out of hand at that point. And I think it's a lot of, from a brand perspective in particular. Some have done it quite well. Nike have done some really interesting things. They've actually made reasonable amount of revenue from it. A lot of that was partnership. But there's a lot of brands who've had no idea what they're doing. I think I saw Porsche recently issued an NFT and it completely bombed because they didn't explain it well enough. They didn't engage with the community. They thought they just put it out there and it works. So there's a lot of car crashes, and that's not just because I said Porsche. There are a lot of car crashes in the NFT space and a lot of misuses of it. And I think it's at a very early stage. And I think what's happening is it's kind of finding its feet, right? And I think NFTs have a role to play. Of course, they have a role to play. I think they've been overhyped in the short term. I think they will evolve, and maybe they won't even be called NFTs, right? Maybe they'll just be these, virtual
Yeah.
digital assets you can own. And who cares if it's an NFT, right? It's a thing, it's something, and it's unique
Yeah.
and it's yours, and that's it.
You know how we
Per-
talk, James, how kind of like we were talking about with the digital twin thing. There's those original definitions of what it is, and then people grab onto it, and it becomes
Yeah.
1,000 different things, and people just start making it up. Um, I would encourage people, you really want to know the source on Web3. Web3 was 100% invented by one person. It came out of the head of one guy, the co-founder of Ethereum, created Web3 many years ago. And I've seen videos. They had conferences on Web3 many years ago before the rest of the world even knew what it was. But it was about decentralized, because normally you go to a website and you log in, or you create a logon, and that logon for your identity and everything is in their database. And so there's this notion of, well, I want to be able to have that distributed and not owned by Facebook or by whomever. Um, Ironically, though, Tim Berners-Lee and the W3C folks have also been working on something to do distributed identity and logins as well, without kind of doing the Web3 thing. But it's always, you can go to Ethereum's site and read all the original docs on, just like Industry 4.0. That's a document created by the German government, even though people tell you it's 1,000 different things, right? So always good to go to see what was coming out of the head of the person who created this stuff. Pretty crazy.
Great. Next, let's take a look at EIoT. And it's smart monitoring and a complex energy management. So, for this, I think you're much better to speak to this trend than I, Vince. So, can you tell us more about EIoT and why people should pay attention to this trend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a interesting one because, while technically the term EIoT kind of stands for the data in the energy networks and how you use the data, the image you can see on the screen is great because it's also a term to use to talk to customers about IoT with a focus on energy. The image you see here, most people don't even know energy is a huge part of the TAM. It's actually second only to mobility. So energy is a big, big part of it. If you look at the sensors and everything out there, huge part of that space. As you can see from this image, it's really about integration, right? So specifically, why do people have a IoT network and then an energy network? Why are they disparate? Why don't they put them together? And this is one of the things that we do. At the end of the day, that's kind of our goal, is to sort of integrate these networks together. And so we're putting them in the same network. And again, it's just with that focus on the energy services. Obviously, with ESG, with the Inflation Reduction Act, I mean, the energy space is exploding right now in a good way. So we're having fun with it, and it is definitely something that's going to grow.
And Vince, what about smart mobility? How does it tie into EIoT?
Great question. EV is a good example of data monitoring, right? When you talk about mobility, but obviously, the connected cars, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a great example when you look at data monitoring and how these communicate with each other. Another great example would, and going back to the conversation about 5G earlier, right? The Helium network, CBRS, as Rob was talking about, their 5G network, recently having partnered with T-Mobile. A lot of people don't even know about it. It's been pretty quiet. We always talk about blockchain technology, not so much about crypto, right? We focus on the tech as it relates to that Web3 conversation we were just having. But this new blockchain-based phone is going to be coming out, and so probably two good examples of that mobility play that we've been enjoying.
Great. Thanks so much, Vince. And we'll also see more autonomous vehicles. I know we're seeing remotely piloted vehicles here in Las Vegas. So, definitely a lot of things exciting happening there as well. And next, looking at sustainability. And I know that this is one of Rob's favorite areas here as we look at why sustainability is a passion for yours. Rob, why are you so passionate about sustainability? And what are some trends you're seeing surrounding it for 2023?
Awesome. Well, I'm here to save the planet, right, Tiffany?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw your
Um,
superhero cape for sure.
yeah, as if, right? Um, you know what? It's been a passion of mine. I found myself years ago having to be on a panel discussion at Ericsson with the heads of sustainability with like all these big companies and had to talk about why IoT plays a role in sustainability. Um, it actually goes right back to what Vince was talking about when you're doing energy management on buildings. You know, using lighting, using anything that requires energy creates emissions, right? So that's why a lot of people do and things like that, or why you see these big building management systems connected to all these things to say, is there a more efficient way to do this? So sustainability tech, obviously you're seeing the rise of these ESG departments and companies. You're seeing directors and VPs of ESG. It in some industries it was called greenwashing and virtue signaling to look like they actually cared, but they really don't care. You know, I'm just here to tell you, I've literally, I did a presentation 6 months ago in Houston at an oil and gas conference where I talked about how to get the entire oil and gas industry to net zero, and nobody tackled me or shot me or anything like that. And so I would say the last couple of years, real or perceived, the big oil companies seem to want to get on board with this net zero. It doesn't mean they don't want to keep drilling and stuff like that. So how do we do that with IoT, right? Well, emissions monitoring. And this is if you think of the simplest IoT use cases, just simple remote monitoring. I just want to know something in real-ish time so I can do something about it, not even predictive. So think about emissions at a drilling pad site in West Texas, or you see these oil tank farm terminals, or at refineries, or at chemical plants. We're worried about greenhouse gases, right? CO2, and even worse, methane, which is infinitely worse than CO2. And so today, in many cases, different governments have something equivalent to the US's, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and there's regulations and different organizations that say you've got to go test for these kind of gases or things like that on certain intervals. And so all I want to get across is that you know, IoT's had struggles in different areas, and it's occurred to me that it could be one of IoT's best things. It could be helping sustainability, helping rescue the environment. Because if I'm told every 6 months I have to go out to a tank farm in my pickup truck and take a reading for methane, and I go, yeah, it looks good, check. And then what if as I'm driving off into the distance, a methane leak starts happening? But I don't go back to that tank farm for another 6 months to check, and it's been leaking for 6 months. The simplest of IoT devices, sensors, wireless networks can do continuous monitoring of all this stuff so that we nip it in the bud, right? And so that's all we want to do. All those, even if you're not doing emissions monitoring, all those times remember talking about jobs to be done, IoT is just kind of emulating that job to be done. Someone goes out and goes onto a farm to see, is fire blight entering my farm, or what's the soil moisture, or I'm going to go take a reading on a gauge. People drive trucks, cars, motorcycles, helicopters, airplanes, and boats to go discover something with their eyeballs, or different types of instruments, and they write it on a clipboard, and then they take it back to the office and they input it into a system. If you can eliminate all that, you eliminate the emissions from that pickup, all the other things that go with it. Also, there's profitability involved for companies who want to be sustainable and use IoT for sustainability. It actually helps your profitability. It's people, it's wear and tear on vehicles, it's fuel, it's all kinds of stuff. So anyway, so last 6 months, as you know, Tiffany, I've been building technology called Greenhouse that's specifically aimed at this for companies, and writing a book that actually gives the recipes. If anyone's familiar with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, imagine a book. Each chapter is one of those goals: poverty, hunger, climate, water, and then seeing all the IoT use cases, and then B, being very prescriptive in telling you exactly what to do to go move the needle in that scenario. So yes, definitely passionate about it. I'm writing code and a book to help people make a difference. Most of the code is actually to give away to NGOs and nonprofits to go make a difference in the world. So I will stop rambling there. But yeah, it's important stuff.
It is important stuff. And that's why we're having the Green Things Summit in April. So, anyone that's interested in that important stuff, be sure to contact us to become a speaker or register to attend our event. And Vince, how does EIoT contribute to sustainability?
I love that last part of the conversation. It puts new meaning to the phrase, we built a better mousetrap. Because again, we did, right? The new mousetrap tells you when there's something in that that occupied, right? So I love Rob's point there. It is really important, right? We talk about the E of ESG. When we talk about environmental and social governance, the social and the governance are two things that are kind of in motion. But when we talk about the E, that has been the focus for a lot of us, and by adding the energy services into the IoT network, it's much more efficient, to Rob's point, I think. And again, it's also a huge part of that journey for customers and for carbon reduction. Even products like harmonic filters. A lot of people don't even know about this stuff. Little filter you put on your power panel, it saves you a double-digit percentage off of your electric bill, protects your equipment, and it's part of that ESG journey as well. So you're doing three things at the same time. So there's just so much in there. And I think I mentioned earlier the Inflation Reduction Act. There's over $100 billion in incentives for customers right now to go out and bring in distributed generation, whether it's solar, microgrid, bringing in LED lighting, as also was mentioned earlier, EV charging. All of these things are incented. It used to be, we had a project in Chicago just a year ago with a couple hundred charging stations. The incentives were low. The Inflation Reduction Act just made it so 80% of the cost of putting in EV charging stations is now covered by the federal IRA. So it's just super amazing what's going on out there. And I think a lot of people just don't know about it. That's really the biggest blocker here. People just are not educated about the Inflation Reduction Act and ESG. And that's kind of where we come into the conversation to help with that. But we're just getting started. This is a big space and it's going to be growing and we're going to be learning a lot more.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Vince. And next, let's take a look at smart homes and their smart spaces. They're even making smart crawl spaces, smart garages. Everything's becoming smart these days. And there's sentient homes where your home can decide how dim your light should be and what time you should wake up. Things like that. Also, what kind of music they should be playing and all types of other settings. And there's Matter, that's the standards that's bringing all of these together in a new connectivity IP protocol. So very interesting stuff happening there. But Vince, when it comes to smart homes, how important is energy monitoring in your opinion?
I would say it's a great question. I would say it's more important than ever. I think, with everyone working from home now, and again, there is a RTO going on, right? Returning to the office, kicking in. But at the end of the day, we all know our home base is going to be our home. That's where we know we can get the work done. Of course, we're traveling, we're doing the things, and there is some RTO. But at the end of the day, that's where we're going to have our foundation, right? So think about it this way: in the last few years, and now going with this, this working from home situation, and then also coupled with one of the biggest upmarkets ever in energy. I mean, let's face it, everyone's bills have doubled, tripled. I mean, it is just a huge problem out there. So not only from the perspective of just helping to defray cost, but also to become much more efficient. A good example would be like the Nest Learning thermostat, right? Very simple example, but I love it for that reason. It's kind of like, hey, look, that's the technology that we all need to be looking at today to be more efficient, and also to help us with this journey for sustainability, and also in the corporate environments, ESG. Right now ESG is a big for investors. You have a low or no ESG score versus someone who has a higher score, they're going to invest with that company, right? Because the carbon rating is a factor for them. Anyway, this is all going to be more relevant as we get into that investor motion going to the consumer, right? As it relates to this, everyone's going to have a carbon rating. And this is a big reason why it's good to get on board with that monitoring.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Vince. And James, do you feel that augmented and virtual reality are becoming more widely adopted into smart homes?
Actually, just before I answer that, just to come back to the sustainability thing,
Uh-huh.
and I think this this will make you laugh, Rob. There are lots, well, not a lot. I've seen people out there marketing themselves or positioning themselves as metaverse sustainability experts, which,
Wow.
yeah, metaverse, and literally, I've seen people call themselves that, and I've deliberately not looked at what they're saying because I just can't bring myself to. But there are people saying I'm a metaverse sustainability expert. It's like, what is that? I don't know. I
it,
don't
it means they're going to plug you into the matrix.
know.
Reloading.
I think
Yeah,
there's
totally.
yeah. So yeah, look out for those people because they're yeah, just look out for them. The role for VR and AR in the smart home, I think it's a little undefined at the moment, if I'm really honest. If I look at it in the sort of simplistic sense of the word, I think there might be, there's a role probably for AR to play in there when the sort of when the hardware gets to the right sort of position. So, being able to overlay data from the home, bit back, it's like digital twin use of data type thing, but not quite. So I think, there's an opportunity there for, that to come in. The headsets aren't there yet. They need to be super easy, something you'd wear around the home and give you enough value to bother wearing them. So I'm not sure there's a huge role at the moment. VR also, I think, is a little undefined. I think the interesting aspect from VR, and a little bit back to that sort of working from home thing, is the ability to see your environment, the ability to interact with objects in that environment. It's not exactly smart home, but it's kind of bringing physical objects into the virtual and being able to blend those, which is kind of, you could say, putting a smart layer over the home, but that's probably stretching a little bit. So I think AR and VR from a smart home perspective, it's a little peripheral at the moment, if I'm honest.
Thanks so much. And for anyone that's just now joining, please stick with us because we still have a few more trends to go as we jump into an interview we have with Catherine Ficara of Solo Secure talking about biometrics. So stay tuned and we'll be back in just a moment. Hello, everyone. You're watching the 2023 Emerging Trends edition of Industry Insights webinars. I'm Tiffany Nielsen, and with me is Catherine Ficara, and she is the VP of Marketing for Solo Secure. How are you doing today, Catherine?
I'm great, Tiffany. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Catherine, can you start us out by telling us a little more about Solo Secure?
Absolutely. So we are a startup, and we're approaching year two. We just came off of last year. We won the CES Innovation Award, and we were finalists at South by Southwest for from a product perspective, where we're launching our biometric ignited cell phone wallet case, so called the Solo Wallet. And that interfaces with an app that we also have called Go Solo, which is kind of the foundation for how you operate the wallet. So we've got both a hardware and a SaaS platform. And so what we're really doing is, disrupting the security space and utilizing new technologies to make everybody's lives easier.
Great. And what role do you feel biometrics will play in 2023?
Well, biometrics, I think, is a continued increase in its role in everybody's lives, right? So it's been, we already have it you utilize biometrics for your cell phone, for your laptop, for access control units, and so forth. But the reality is that I think it's twofold. Number one, pins and passwords have been traditionally used to protect your belongings, and there's a lot of vulnerability there. And I think with the increase in computational power, it's allowing the ability to integrate those newer technologies a lot more efficiently. So I think you're going to see that really play a bigger role in people's lives from a day-to-day perspective.
And what industries do you see adopting biometrics the most?
I mean, across the board, you see it a lot in, places where security is a topic of conversation, right? And where it's an issue. So, healthcare, banks, financial, government, defense, a lot of those have widely adopted it. But I think what's really interesting in what we're seeing now is the adaptation through wearable technology. So, if you think about, you think about your Aura ring or an Apple Watch and the kind of data that it can collect from a person, so you're getting all sorts of health information from, temperature to vitals to heart rate to sleep patterns. And when you take all that and you port it through an IoT device, what you're getting back from that is really personalized information. And all of that's protected through your biometrics, right? But what I think the conversation really needs to be around is, why is that such a scary thing for people? I think data, with the deprecation of IDFAs with Apple and so forth, and asking app not to track, I think people are getting scared of giving their data. But the reality is when it's protected, it's actually really important. It's important for companies to make the right decisions and to provide relevant information. And the fact that you could get back a personalized health plan that is so personalized for you as a specific person, I think it's really important, and it's important for us to have that information and that knowledge. So data is a really good thing, and I think the biometric security aspect of it just makes it so that people understand that their stuff is really secured.
Thanks, Catherine. And it sounds like this also involves digital identity. So, do you also feel that digital identity will play a large role in the year ahead?
Yeah, I mean, digital identity is, we're so online right now, right? Our lives are online. That's going to just continue as we move forward. And so there'll be emerging technologies and efficiencies that will come into play that I think will make people feel more and more comfortable about having their lives live online. But yeah, that's where all of your data is going to live in the cloud and so forth. So yeah, I think that's going to be something that's important that we're going to really want to protect. And again, a really good secure way to do that is through biometric technology for sure.
And just to go into a little more detail on that topic, when it comes to biometrics versus digital identity, do you see them as being one and the same, or how do they work together? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question because I think people use them interchangeably, but they really are different, right? So, when you're talking about biometrics, you're talking about the physical aspects of what makes you unique as an individual person, right? So your iris, your face, your voice, your heartbeat, your fingers, I mean, those are all things that characterize you as a person that can't be duplicated, right? And in essence, your digital identity is similar. However, it's just taking a replica of your identity and living it online. It has nothing to do with your physical characteristics, but that information that lives online is just as personalized to you, but just accessed differently. So those are really the two main differences.
Thanks, Catherine. And what prediction do you have for 2023, or what other trends are you closely following and feel will be significant in the year ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this morning and I was like, I remember watching the Jetsons when I was a kid. And like, the dad went up and he touched the side of the door and then the door opened and it was like, whoa. And like, no, and here we are, years later, being able to do a lot of really amazing things with emerging technologies. And that's just going to continue to happen. I think that you're going to see, you know, um, the latest use in biometric sensors come more integrated in your everyday life, right? Like everything from just regular consumer gadgets that you want to protect your financial things with to larger things like accessing all, continuing to be able to access important documents that you feel as a consumer, you feel safe that it's guarded that way. I also think that there's going to be an increase in machine learning technologies and efficiencies there. I think you're going to see a lot of more artificial intelligence being utilized by companies that are creating, and automating different efficiencies for different businesses. I think that's going to be really important. And even augmented and virtual reality, I think you're going to see a lot more of that come into play with education, with entertainment. So, it's time now that technology is, catching up for the way that we live our lives. And so all of that's going to be seamlessly integrated. And I think it's just going to continue to be an evolving process that I think is really exciting.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Catherine, and we look forward to featuring you on a future edition of Industry Insights webinars.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Tiffany.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, and we're back. We hope you enjoyed that interview on biometrics. Interesting trends there. And as we were speaking about artificial intelligence, and we're seeing adaptive AI, and we're seeing a lot going on with Chat GPT. And James, do you feel that AI will be used more with immersive technology in the year ahead?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've already integrated some elements of ChatGPT into some of our collaborative VR platforms, so you can go in there and be, having a discussion with an avatar and getting the sort of responses you can get from GPT from it. So absolutely, it's going to make the experiences, more valuable, more realistic, quicker to be able to adapt to changing scenarios. So, I think has an impact for immersive tech, and let's face it, it's having an impact across, all different elements of business, right through to marketing and writing, copy and creating content. So yeah, it's a big change.
Thanks so much, James, and welcome back, Mats. And
Thank
I'm
you.
curious, what are your thoughts with where we are evolving with AI and what's possible now that wasn't before?
Well, I don't see any, dramatic, improvements. I mean, AI is slow moving. We're still far from even knowing how the brain works. But from the IoT space, we now have a lot of applications that are now suddenly becoming available with APIs. And that's going to continue. And then as we build applications in the IT space uh, and work with specific customers, they're going to want to engage with different type of AI capabilities. And one of my jobs as CTO for my company is to be the person that literally searches out what are they and how would we use them, and then contact the companies and find out what's available and what isn't. So that's going to continue, and we're going to see more and better offerings. We're going to see some competitions. We do face recognition better than these guys, and that's always good. So that's what I see the trend in 2023: more available services, web services that can be called uh, as part of an application infrastructure.
Thanks so much, Mats. And next, let's take a look at robotics. Well, there's service robots, and we're seeing this a lot at UNLV, where they're doing a lot of deliveries on campus uh, through the use of these service robots. And they're also out there collecting information about the campus. So that's interesting. And they're also getting easier to use. And there's hyper automation, which is pretty much automating everything. But Rob, do you have a prediction for the growth that we'll see in the year ahead for robotics?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's going to keep going strong. I keep seeing it in different spaces, just like you've seen it at UNLV. I've seen it. My daughter goes to ASU and little robots are bringing food. I've seen on the farm, I've seen robotic machines that are using computer vision to pick apples and different things at a high rate of speed. Remember, a lot of times technology is pushed along because we think it's interesting or there's a lot of research or it's cool or whatever you want to call it. Maybe we talk about like the whole AR VR glasses might be around there. Sometimes technology is pushed forward out of an urgent need, right? Um, and so what I would say is an urgent need that can help drive robotics is we've got several areas that are really struggling with not having enough of a workforce. Healthcare, manufacturing, farming are three that come off the top of my head that have massive workforce shortages. And so they need robotics and they need hyper automation to pick up the slack. So it's not a scenario where we're eliminating jobs with technology. There's just not enough people to do the jobs that need to be done, right? And so when you have a real stressful scenario like that, it pushes you to advance things. And so, yeah, we're absolutely going to be pushed along to automate more processes with technology and create robots to do the tasks that the missing person it can't do at the moment, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And also, we're seeing more advancements in space tech, and space tech is Trend 22. And if you want to learn more about space tech, you're welcome to check out our space tech webinar. But we're seeing the main trend as the rise of satellite IoT. And Mats, what role do you feel for space tech that IoT will play, and how will satellite IoT enable new capabilities for 5G?
Well, space tech IoT solves one of the biggest problems with IoT. How do you connect to the device? Once you can connect via satellites, suddenly you can connect from anywhere in the world. And what's interesting, we talk about the trend in 2023, and that is that low cost IT from satellites is being pretty much introduced to the marketplace as a commercial service as we speak. And so 3 years ago, I sat in a similar conference and said, "What's new in IoT?" And that's when suddenly the cellular carriers switched on narrowband IoT. And we're talking about services now for, in that case, it was $1 a month for a certain data amount. And when it comes to space IoT connectivity, we talk about $1 a month for, and that is, truly revolutionary. So what we're seeing right now is, a lot of companies that are developing solutions that prior they were dependent on cellular networks, and now they don't have to depend on that anymore. And as usual, kind of Apple is leading the way. And the good news here is that the technology used to connect with these satellites is 5G. So we are now getting chipsets that have 5G connectivity that can support both space connectivity and then roaming over to a cellular network. And that is huge. And as usual, Apple is actually leading the way. They are introducing a kind of emergency call service that uses satellite connectivity. I don't know if they're using the narrowband. I just haven't checked that, but it's huge, and the chip guys are there. And as I always said, I've been long enough in this industry and in telecom industry. Look at what the chip guys are bringing out, and 18 months later, it will start showing up in products. And they have been good enough at making bets over the years to keep semiconductor healthy and rapidly growing. And we're going to continue to see that with chipsets, combined system on a chip with microcontroller, edge processing, and anywhere connectivity. That's all. So this is a huge trend, and as I said, it's being introduced as we speak.
Thanks so much, Matt. And you are right. It's definitely fueling the adoption of global ubiquitous coverage. So I think we'll see more of that in the year ahead. And our last trend, mergers and acquisitions. And it's been a year of mergers and acquisitions in 2022. But Rob, do you feel that we'll see more mergers and acquisitions in 2023? And if so, why?
Absolutely. So some of you know, I've spent since about 2018. I've been at Ericsson. I was a VP and head of IoT strategy there, and the team I was on is the IoT Accelerator. And so this is apropos. Just at the beginning of this last year, there was an M&A carve out of the IoT Accelerator team that I was on the LT for, and going over to Eris Communications. And so I think it's just heralding more to come. We talked about consolidation in IoT. Matt's, talks about, yeah, we had 500 platforms and now we have fewer, right? And so there's so many pillars in IoT. There's devices, there's sensors, there's embedded software, there's that whole connectivity world, cellular, LoRa, satellite, or otherwise. There's the platforms. We've seen a lot of platforms of the hyperscalers closing down this last year. There's analytics, there's APIs. There's so much technology and so many players behind all those kind of technologies. And so I think it's ripe for lots of M&A deals to keep happening because there was a lot in 2022. So I think 2023 will be just as big. And also, when you go into a recessionary environment like we're anticipating, bigger companies use that to grab market share from the smaller players that are not going to do as well, that may suffer or even go out of business. And so you should expect the big players who have those giant war chests of cash laying around to go after market share via sales, as well as gobbling up companies for pennies on the dollar as their stock prices drop and become very attractive acquisitions for a lot of the big tech companies. That's my take.
Thanks, Rob. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now with quantum, where it was going to be a big trend last year. I think that we're going to see a lot of these companies get gobbled up this year because it's taking longer for these products to get developed. Quantum's complex, it takes time. And so a lot of these quantum companies are getting purchased by other companies. And Vince, what are you seeing when it comes to mergers and acquisitions?
Coming from the telecom side, just going back to what I've said earlier, that I sold my previous technology services brokerage about almost 4.5 years ago to a unicorn, and it was one of the first strategic transactions in the channel. But since that time, it has really become a frenzy. I think I started a fire in the industry, but the good news is actually it's really helped the convergence process. We saw a lot of need for telecom to level up into other services, like the evolution was telecom cloud, but now it's really the necessity for IoT and AI and other technologies. And the landscape has completely changed. I mean, again, over these last few years, it's going to just continue to increase. And I think it's also now a path of digital transformation, especially for that channel. It's just a necessary part of their evolution. But obviously, with everything going on the last couple of years, it's really accelerated that. I think that's going to continue. I don't see that stopping or slowing down at all.
Thanks, Vince. And I know we talked about how it's playing in with quantum, but James, I'm curious, do you feel that there'll be more mergers and acquisitions when it comes to immersive tech in the year ahead?
Yeah, I think that the marketplace has had a bit of a reset, and with that comes opportunity, which plays particularly well with our model at the Glimpse Group, whereby we bring companies in and bring them into part of the group. So I definitely think there's big opportunity in the space. The shakeout from the metaverse apparently failing before it's even had a chance to start, has put a lot of pressure on companies, and therefore it makes much more strategic sense to look for mergers, or for opportunities to acquire at fairly reasonable market rates. So yeah, there'll be a sort of shakeout in our sector as well, undoubtedly, much as Rob and Vince are talking about.
Great. And as this webinar is coming towards a close, we do have another webinar and event coming up. Our Green Things Summit is coming up in April, so be sure to register for that event. And we also have a couple offers. So we've got 15% off of our sponsorship packages and buy one, get one advertising. So you can find out more about that on the event page and also at iotmktg.com. And we also have an offer from Triotos, and it is a free download. Mats, can you tell us more about this free download?
Yeah, it's a short white paper. It's just 2 pages. It's a quick read on how do you create any size IT solutions that scale. And it's kind of an introduction to what we do, but I think it's also a general discussion of, how do you create IT solutions today? Because it's quite different from what you did last year or 3 years before. So please download and feel free to contact me. My information is there if you want a actually live demonstration of what it is we do.
Great. Thanks so much, Mats. And now we're at Q&A, and we do have a few questions here in the chat. One is for Mats. How do I take Open RAN into account when I implement my IoT solution?
Well, I like to work with customers on from their business requirements perspective. So, if your business requirements need Open RAN, which I don't want to doubt you, but I do doubt you, then uh, what I as CTO do is I then contact the Open RAN supplier and see how to work with them. So I've spent a lot of time with business development over my years, and I'm pretty much used to picking up the phone and talking to anyone anywhere in the world. So it's going to be down to the use case and what your costs are and what your connectivity needs are. And I will work with you, or we will work with you as to what's the best. Typically, when it comes to connectivity, it's cost, bit rates, and reliability. Those are the three things, or the amount of data that you need to transfer every month, because most of these things seem to have monthly billing.
Perfect. And if anyone has any other questions, this is your last chance to drop them in the chat, but we do have a few more here. How will the metaverse develop in gaming is the next question. I believe that's to you, James.
I mean, arguably the metaverse has come out of gaming. So gaming has embraced it very, very quickly. So how will it develop? Well, it's kind of, if the metaverse exists anywhere, it's in gaming, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the best way to look at it. So therefore, it's ahead of the game. So it's more what
Oh,
trickles
nice
down.
pun.
Thank you. That was
Yeah,
actually
that was
unintentional,
good.
which is disappointing because if I hadn't thought of it, it's not quite as well thought through. But thank you for noticing. So yeah, I think gaming is ahead of every other aspect of the adoption of whatever will be ultimately the metaverse. So yeah, they're kind of already there.
Perfect. And the next question is, what is the biggest trend for ag tech?
Wow. I can take that. Yeah, ag tech's been 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Great tech. It's easier and it's harder than industrial IoT scenarios that you might do in a factory. What I mean by that, it's easier because it's not a lot of high velocity data, millions of events per second, that kind of thing. It's kind of more chill. You've got devices out on farms sending you soil moisture, temperature, humidity, little bits of data infrequently too, maybe 30 minutes, hour, whatever. And so you don't need the mother of all IoT platforms in the cloud to handle it, right? So that's the good part. The hard part about it is the scale of agriculture in a farm, for instance. And so, and I've got lots of hands-on experience with this. You know how we always talk about POC hell on IoT and stuff like that, or purgatory. Lots of POCs go great. Growers love it. They're seeing the data. They love that the farm is talking to them. But when it says, okay, let's deploy to 10,000 acres, and maybe that's 10,000 devices and associated sensors running on battery, maybe with solar above a canopy, with some kind of wireless. And maybe it's using LoRa, maybe it's using our friends from Teal with cellular, which I've used them before on farms. The money adds up fast. And so all of a sudden there's the cost of the device, the sensors, the connectivity, things like that, times 10,000. And also literally boots on the ground, cowboy boots and pickup trucks. And you're driving great distances to put, this is in specialty crops. It's not row crops is like wheat and corn, where John Deere is doing all that stuff with sensors on tractors. Specialty crops like an orchard or something like that, or a lot of the stuff you see in California where you kind of tie them in there. So anyway, that's going along, and it gets more expensive. And so I'd say the trends will be in business modeling, to be honest with you. And what I mean by that is to make that stuff affordable for the grower, because the data is valuable. When we talk about sustainability, you might have noticed massive droughts everywhere, even though you're getting a lot of rain right now. That the Colorado River is kind of disappearing, and so California, the San Joaquin Valley is in trouble. So you got to be precise. And so as we've gone out of this chip shortage over the last couple of years and supply chain disruptions, we're now seeing, I'm not going to call it a glut, but we're seeing a lot more devices and sensors come onto the market. I think the costs will come down. I think we'll do some good business modeling on SaaSifying. Did I just make up a term? The hardware and the software, to kind of like ADT security for your home. You're gonna pay whatever $39.95 a month for them to monitor you, and someone breaks in, and then you have the choice. Do you want to pay up front the $1,500 to put sensors on your doors and windows, or do you want us to roll it into your plan with a minimum length of time, right? 24 months, 36 months. This is how we're going to have to solve, I think, a lot of things in ag tech, to be honest with you. Because right now, most of the money is coming from grants to the USDA rather than real dollars. So, pretty interesting space.
And another question, how much growth do you predict for robots and in what industry sectors?
I'm going to say 100% growth in manufacturing.
I was going to say the same thing. Awesome.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Well, that's 1/3 of us that agree.
I actually believe it's going to be more. I think it's going to be more than that, because what we're seeing right now is a tremendous reshoring on manufacturing. So in the next couple of years, companies that are supporting, smart manufacturing are heading into boom times.
Great. And our last question here is, will there eventually be regulations on conversational AI? For example, I just found out that science journals are banning the listing of Chat GPT as co-authors on papers.
You know what? We're seeing that everywhere, and we're seeing lots of controversy. You're seeing school districts banning it. My wife is a school teacher, and the first week that thing came out and we played with it on the couch, and she just had that horrified look on her face when she thought of all her students who are going to start using Chat GPT to write their papers. And so that said, I see a lot of tech people come out on LinkedIn and Twitter saying, no, it's great. We need to embrace it. And the teachers should teach kids how to use that somehow. And so maybe I'm just an idiot, but I don't know. It's going to get crazy. And just because you're banning it just because the school district says we're banning Chat GPT, doesn't mean they can't use it at home or whatever when they got to write a paper or report or something like that, or write code or answer every question, imaginable. 2023 is going to be so interesting because of this.
Yeah, it's going to be the Wild West for a little while with it.
Since you admitted you were an idiot, maybe you'd be replaced by a chat.
Yes. Oh, hey, trust me.
We can all be replaced.
We're going to see that. We are absolutely going to see lots of people get replaced by this AI. You just count on it.
Stop to it now.
Yeah.
And in closing, go ahead.
When Chat GPT can do the work that it takes you 8 hours to do in just a few minutes, that's going to be an eye opener. It's going to be a rough ride this year, I think.
Keyword limitations. Let's put some limitations on this.
But I would say to you, James, don't worry. Chat GPT will never be able to recreate Shakespeare.
Love that.
Or will it?
That's a great relief.
Well. And Rob, I just want to say congratulations on your win during our Industry Insights IoT Awards for Most Sustainable Solution. And also to you, Vince, as you won Digital Transformation Innovator of the Year personally, and EIoT was Product of the Year. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Vince. That's awesome, dude.
Good stuff, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of the year. I hope you enjoyed these 23 trends. Let us know what you think in the chat, and we'll talk to you again in April at the Green Thing Summit. Have a great day. Businesses are facing many challenges as climate change increases and carbon emission tracking becomes mandatory. There is a need for green solutions that assist in bringing balance to the environment and eliminating unnecessary waste. The Green Thing Summit will highlight IoT and other advanced technologies used to drive green initiatives, optimize processes, reduce energy, empower the transition to clean energy, support ESG, and help the environment. Featuring panel discussions, keynotes, training sessions, and fireside chats, the Green Thing Summit has a multitude of opportunities to learn about green technology solutions and network with like-minded professionals. Discussion topics include sustainability and ESG, energy efficiency and power optimization, IoT's role for EVs and clean energy, and green technology strategies. Get your ticket now to attend and contact us to learn more about our speaking, sponsorship, and advertising opportunities. We will see you at the Green Thing Summit on Thursday, April 27th. Get your ticket now to attend.